Today we bring you Darryl Praill. Besides being the CRO at VanillaSoft, he's a top 50 sales keynote speaker, branding expert, social media influencer, category leading podcaster, and a serial entrepreneur. He has raised almost 100 million in funding, been an acquirer and acquired and gone public. And well, how can I miss this? He has been fired only once. Darryl, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you and thank you very much for making time right in the morning. I'm excited to have you because you have such a vantage point from where you can see the topic that we are going to discuss, which is this elephant in the room, which we sort of don't like to talk about, the abysmal conversion rate that we are looking at in B2B sales.
I'm already having more fun in this show than I've had in a show in a long time. This is fantastic.
Great. So let's dive in, Darryl. I mean, we don't talk about this whole issue of terrible conversion rates in B2B sales. What landed us here?
Okay, so what landed us here? I think what landed us here was a complete disconnection, lack of alignment, a lack of coordination, lack of ownership between ensuring that the sales function and the marketing function work together in tandem, in unison, with shared goals and objectives, as opposed to, us versus them, which often is the case with different compensation plans, which results in different behaviors, with different leadership that is focused only on their view of the world and not understanding the bigger picture. I can blame venture capitalists for those funding those small, rocket ships, because they tend to ignore marketing because their economic degrees from Harvard or Yale or Princeton didn't really go into marketing other than one course. They went into, simple math, which is where sales comes in. Ironically, marketing actually has more math than sales for those who care. You get into CEOs who often are engineering based. I saw a stat the other day that said less than 10% of companies, of CEOs, come from the sales discipline. I think the general stereotype is that most CEOs do come from the sales track. So I found that stat kind of interesting. But what it's really telling you is a lot of engineers or product managers or product developers or entrepreneurs start up on the, the R&D side. And which is a very, having been a coder myself, that's a very logical, tangible, black and white kind of paradigm. And the idea of marketing is just so out there because it's often intangible. It makes no sense to them. So ignore that. And then the idea of sales is dealing with people, and that's just yucky. So people are so unpredictable, unlike my code. So that's just blah. So I just rely upon the individual leaders to do their own thing, and I'll be the CEO and give them no guidance. And now, of course, I'm across the board. I am stereotyping. But if you ask what got us here, I don't think there's any one person, maybe up until recently, who has been said, you own fixing this problem. You would think it would be the CEO, but often the CEO is the person in charge of strategy or culture or that next round of funding, that liquidity event, and they tend to delegate down. So long-winded answer, I apologize, but I think it's how we got here. Nobody actually was tasked with fixing the problem.
If you look at B2B, obviously a huge part of it is technology. And as I said, I'll reserve my question for the technology part of it.
Go with it, man.
We will keep it aside. But what is happening in the rest of the business, in the FMCGs, in the manufacturing, there, a lot of people are really coming up from the tracks and they are people who have spent time between marketing and sales. I know of a lot of these kind of companies where marketing folks are pushed into sales and vice versa so that they can sort of drive. I mean, one of the ways people want to solve this marketing versus sales issue is by putting the same guys in both departments and so on, swapping the positions. What is happening there vis-a-vis what you see and what you just
so you're hitting a passion. So I put myself through university working on the factory floor, working on the assembly line. My first 5 years where I was coding, I was actually developing and consulting, doing professional services on manufacturing applications. And I was on the shop floor and everything else on site. In the tech space, I've worked for 2 different supply chain companies, 8 years in manufacturing supply chain. So manufacturing, I have some knowledge on, just enough to be dangerous. And manufacturing historically has been a late adopter. They have got, so they're risk averse. They don't invest in technology often. They don't invest in, how do I put this? Their leadership often are not the cream of the crop of the business schools of the world. Those go to Wall Street or Silicon Valley or somewhere else. And they have established channels that have been that way for 50 plus years. And so for them, manufacturing, their biggest innovation was EDI back in the 70s, electronic data interchange, where it was just trying to get some semblance of kind of inventory management. And even that rocked their world, which ironically was ahead of its time at the time, but it was only forced upon them by the big three automotive manufacturers. So these industries never change unless the people who are on top of the food chain force it down. And you can see examples of that, whether it be Amazon, because a lot of the manufacturers are creating commodities that are sold through that channel, or Walmart as an example, or automotive, Ford, GM, et cetera. They don't change. There's no incentive for them to change. So if 5% is the number they've got, that's just their normal, right? So they don't know that this is bad. This is the way it's always been. And then if you look at, well, if we need to invest to change that, their budgets aren't structured that way. They might be investing 1%, 2% at most in marketing. You look at software, they'll invest 12% or more. You need this is the part where it's universal across any organization, whether you're manufacturing or high tech or pharmaceutical or professional services, an accounting firm, a PwC, is you need a hard charging champion who's going to take the hits and the blows to actually implement change. And when you do that, you disrupt a lot of people along the way. You create a few enemies and they're looking for you to fail, and they will pounce on you the minute you have a setback. A lot of people don't know how to implement change. They don't understand it's about identifying an internal champion, creating a business case, creating consensus, creating an actual committee, committed to the change, understanding that there's going to be pain. It's like childbirth. I have to go through and I'm speaking as a man, obviously, but you have to go, watching my wife, you had to go through a whole bunch of pain to get to this good thing, right? The other side of the process. And a lot of people just don't have that fortitude within them to endure that. So you got people, you got politics, you got education, you got budgetary issues, and you've got the status quo. Now, I'm stating the obvious, I know, but to answer your question on manufacturing, there's one more long-winded answer, my friend.
Touching on technology, one of the issues that I see is that because a lot of the technology companies are founded by folks who are techies, to put it simply, they're programmers, then that attitude sort of percolates and makes us over-reliant on technology. I mean, we both run tech companies, we sell technology products, but having been there, I think the over-reliance on technology is also contributing to a great extent to this impasse.
So that's an interesting one, so let's look at that one. I do hear you coming from. If I look at something like, going back to manufacturing, adding robotics to the assembly line, people lost jobs. They lost income because their jobs were eliminated. But the line itself, the production line, became far more efficient, and the quality went up dramatically, thereby lowering their after-sale support and maintenance and warranty expense, increasing their reputation. Increased reputation results in more deals coming to you with minimal, based solely on your reputation for quality that you might not have had before. So for those organizations, in that case, technology probably grew their conversion rate, or at least grew their profits, if not their conversion rates, because it lowered the cost. If I look at technology, I think where many people get mistaken is they believe technology is going to make life better. And that's misguided and ill-informed. Technology, if you understand it truly, is simply a vehicle to support or enable or to expedite a process, right? That's what it's there for. Technology is a process. If we're going to have an improved process, for example, 5% conversion rate. Okay, so what's the process that we have better quality leads? All right, so that if I have better quality leads coming across, then by definition, it should go from 5% to what, 10%? Just simply by I may get fewer leads, but the leads I get are higher quality. Well, I can use a process like marketing automation that will add lead scoring, lead nurturing, etc. So that was all about a qualification, and the technology on its own didn't facilitate that, but it enabled that to be implemented. So I had a better process. They never sat around saying, what we need? We need Marketo or HubSpot. They sat around saying, we need better leads. Every sales rep in the world knows this. I need better leads. The leads you give me suck. Can you give me better leads? The sales reps aren't out there saying, we need Marketo. They never once say we need Marketo. They say we need better leads. That's the process. So I guess I would challenge you a little bit by saying, does the technology lead to that? I would love to hear your point of view on that.
I think that inherently a lot of selling is lazy selling.
Yes.
And having technology and this plethora of tools, I was just reading somewhere that B2B companies are on an average investing in 100 SaaS products, 100 SaaS apps. Not all of them for sales, but
you're spot on right.
Yeah. So
sales, marketing, customer success, support, you got it.
Right. So 100 apps per company. Imagine that. So as a sales guy, if I'm having 15 apps to use, it makes me lazy. And I think a lot of my work will get done by the technology. And I'm not blaming the person, by the way. I mean, it's the environment. So
no,
I mean,
I get it. I totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah. And
you're right. It does make you lazy. Carry on.
So I have a feeling that when we say that a rep has to make 100 calls and that 100 calls is resulting in only one meeting or one actual call connect, let's do some robocalling. Let's bring in a technology which will allow me to make 1,000 calls. And then my rep will have
10 meetings.
Right? So the point is that we are trying to treat the symptoms and not the actual issues.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for me, I love what you're saying. I'm living what you're saying. And for those to have context, I made reference at the start that I took on the CRO role, but almost a year ago. I've been a VP of sales. I've been a VP of marketing, CMO. Most recently, I was the chief marketing officer for about 3 years when they then handed me the title of CRO. So on its own, that was, hey, weird. A marketing dude became head of all the revenue. That's uncommon. So why was that? Well, why was that is exactly what you're talking about. Our conversions sucked. So why do our conversion rates suck? And that, by making me CRO, it was a very strategic decision. Why the marketing guy got it is because, A, they needed somebody who owned it. We started off by saying there was nobody here who actually owned it. They needed somebody to own it. And it could be the CEO, but in this case, the CEO said, I'm doing this, but I recognize somebody needs to own it, so I appoint you. You own it. That's cool. B, I owned all sides of the revenue, the sales, the marketing, etc. So now that gave me some options. I could reallocate budget, which I couldn't do before. I could, and I've done this. I've moved money from the marketing team over to the sales team to either invest more technology, hire more people, right? I've restructured the sales team to save a little money and give it back over to marketing. Historically, you would never have that. Marketing's got their budget. Nobody shall touch it. It's granted at the beginning of the fiscal year, and that's theirs, and it's theirs. And sales, stop bitching and moaning about how much money marketing has. That's what you got. And sales, your headcount are done. You can't hire anymore. It was in the budget. Stop whining it. You need more people. If you just had more people, you'd make more sales. So now I can move everything around. The second thing I started looking at was the process. What's the process for actually identifying leads? And I recognize for us, we were historically biased on inbound leads, which is good, but on inbound sales, a pretty easy sale. You think about it, right? Because they're coming to you with high intent. They found me, They came looking, they have a problem. They went looking and they found me. And they basically came to me and they said, hey, do you guys have something that might fix my problem? So now it's just kind of like, yeah, we do. Give me your credit card and we'll hook you up. But that problem with that is that you get a couple of things. You get often small deal sizes, one in a SaaS world, 1 or 2 seats. And you get high churn. Yeah, I tried it for a month or two. It didn't work. I'm out of here. So what we had to do is we had to go and overcome churn and get deal size up. Notice I'm not talking about conversion rate yet. Was we had to go and add an outbound model. So we introduced account-based marketing and selling. So now we're going out and identifying the target accounts we want to sell to. Now my conversion rate I should go up because I have handpicked my sweet spot, where before it was open season for anybody to come to me. And I could safely say 80% of the people come to me that might even buy my product were probably a bad fit for me, but I took their credit card anyway. Hence I had, not a bad, the conversion rate was okay, but they didn't stay. And then we lost money. So that's where you look at the bigger picture. We want to make money. When we went outbound, this is my ideal customer profile. And these are my target personas. And this is why these people care. So now the conversion rate should go up dramatically, but it's a different set of skills. So now I've got a sweet spot. I've identified that process, but we still convert low. Why do we convert low? Because the skills suck, because they're used to inbound selling. They don't know how to outbound sell. So now we need to teach them how to do outbound selling. Well, to do outbound selling, guess what they need? They need more tools. They need some sales enablement. They need some conversational intelligence. They need. The beauty of this, though, going full circle, is that recognizing the shortcomings and recognizing we had process issues, this is what I've learned. This is actually a really good case. I just had this conversation within the last week. I have a person in leadership on my team who is really, really, really good at defining processes. All right. Oh, this is a problem. Okay, moving forward, I declare that this is how we will handle it. And everybody goes, okay. And that's where they stop. That's where their strength ends. Because what happens? What happens is a few of the members of the sales team leave, so new members join to replace them, and everybody forgets to tell those new members that we made this informal rule declaration 6 months ago, but you were never told. It was never put into the onboarding process. It was never systemized. And then they start making the exact same mistake, and 6 months later, we're in the exact same boat we were in 6 months ago because nobody told the new kids how the informal process was. And that's where technology comes in. So now what we can do is take those processes that we are forced to examine and create and make sure that they're systemized so that it's just forced upon everybody. Well, you can't affect change in 18 months that's sustainable. It takes time to identify it, takes time to actually address it, takes time to retrain it, and then it takes time for your normal sales cycles to show a byproduct. And usually what you're doing is you're iterating on that. You're fixing it. You're seeing where you missed the mark. You're fixing it again. You're seeing where you missed the mark. 18 months is not enough time.
True.
So people look for short solutions. To your point, okay, I did 100 calls. I got one meeting. Oh, well, a short solution to get everybody off my back is to do 1,000 calls. That's how I saved my job. So nobody's thinking strategically. Nobody's thinking long term. Why? Because often you have venture capitalists saying, I need an immediate return because we have an exit strategy for you because my portfolio needs you to make a return from me within 3 years max. And part of that means we have to get you to unicorn status and blah, 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 blah. So you have competing agendas. That's how we got here, in my opinion. Wow, I just said a lot. I apologize.
Unless you touch upon the holistic picture, it will again be like, okay, this is the short-term fix. So although the topic is about fixing the 5% problem, that fix cannot be a quick fix. You know what I mean?
Yes. And it's got to be a shared fix.
Yes.
And
yes.
A lot of people don't know how to lobby and get consensus on budget, resources, and on timelines, right? I have a story I tell to people. They'll often say to me, Darryl, like a good example. When I took over the CRO role, there was another person on the team, and they said to me several months into my job, they're like, holy smokes, you've gotten more money and more resources out of, the bean counters than any of your predecessors ever did. How in the hell did you do that? And I said, you need to understand. I said, it's all about generating consensus. And I said, everybody would just go and say, I have a problem. I need money. And that was it. There was no business case, no nothing else. I said, when I was a first-time vice president, I was a vice president of marketing, I used to get so frustrated because I would go into these, I was finally at the executive table. I'd made it. Here I was. Going to these meetings, you're like, okay, this is really weird. I don't know what to do. I feel like an imposter, but I'm just going to do my thing. And a few months into it, okay, I'm feeling comfortable. And then I would go and I would pose ideas and I would get shot down by the rest of the executive team. And I watched this grizzled 50-something-year-old, ironically where I'm at now, chief technology officer, a tech guy. And he'd come in and he'd say an idea. And everyone would go, oh, Dave, that's awesome. Yeah, do it. This went on for 6 months. And I'm like, what the hell? Because I know my ideas are the right ideas. I may be young, but I know they're the right ideas. So I went into Dave's office and I asked him, I said, Dave, he goes, yes. I said, I shut the door. I said, here's what's going on. I ask, I get shot down. You ask, they love you. What the hell? We're literally doing the exact same thing. And he says to me, oh, Darryl, you're so cute. You actually think that decisions are made at that executive table. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, Darryl, before I ever bring that up at the executive table, I've gone around to every single person on that table and said, this is kind of a problem I see. And, I got thinking about you because you have such a unique perspective. I want to bounce this off you. Do you got a few minutes? Sure. And I'm thinking that this is a problem. You think that's a problem? Yeah, that's a problem. I'm thinking if we did this, that would fix that problem. Make a little money, little people, but I think it would fix that problem. And they're going to say, well, I agree with you, but maybe with a slight little twist. Oh, that twist is interesting. I hadn't thought of that. Okay, thanks. And he goes, Darryl, I would do that for every single person, the head of finance, the head of HR, the head of whatever. Away I go. And he goes, so when I got to the table that you're seeing, he goes, in fact, I did it with you. Remember that? He goes, I said, yeah. I said, but I thought you were just taking me aside because you just wanted my advice. He goes, no, Darryl. I mean, yes, but no. I'm lobbying you. And he goes, so then when I go to the table and I pitch it, it's 80% my original pitch, and the other 20% is comprised of the little tweaks that every other individual said. And he goes, Darryl, what happens now? They all have ownership because they heard their element of the idea included. They were secretly consulted behind the scenes. So they all say yes. And I said, son of a bitch, you bastard. And it changed my life. What I just described is what most people don't do when they try to fix that 5%. They panic and they go into let's do 1,000 robocalls instead of 100 because that'll get us, it's a numbers game and I won't be around to clean up the mess. Venture capital is great for that. I won't be around to clean up the mess. I'll be moved on. Or they can lobby, get champions and advocates, and get buy-in on a plan that buys them the time they need, a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever the hell it is, money, people to fix the problem. Most people don't have that skill. Candidly, most people don't have that skill.
Yeah. So it's a huge leadership issue actually, and part of it could be because a lot of them have legacy experience which doesn't fit into the new reality.
Yes. And part of what I tell people, so you go back to this manufacturing conversation and why is it changing in non-tech environments? And my response was because that's the way it always is. Many of these businesses are family run. It's so therefore the decisions are made in a family style. All right. Often you're not there if you're the outsider. So you may be the head of production trying to increase, production, if you will, so you can get, lower waste, higher quality, higher throughput, and they can make more money. But if the family makes decisions around the table that you're not involved in, then nothing's going to happen. And that's the issue, is that a lot of these companies, there's no desire to change. That's always the way it's been. And because it's always the way that it's been, they've never been forced to actually figure that crap out. And often because they have a secure position, if it's a family, there's really no incentive about keeping my job. They're going to keep my job regardless. So that's the challenge you have. So I tell people, if you're going to go in and you're going to be given a mandate, like I have, which is you're going to be having a mandate, it could be head of marketing, head of sales, CRO, which is to generate outcomes that are often measured by revenue attainment. and you work backwards, that means you need to have more than a 5% conversion rate. That's the biggest issue kicking you in the behind, but stopping you from being successful. Then you've got to affect that change necessary for you to be successful. You have to start the lobbying and discernment process, believe it or not, in the job interview. You need to find out if the culture of the company will empower you to make those hard decisions and commit to the investments and commit to the timelines necessary to affect the change they want. And if in that interview, by asking those really hard questions, your gut's telling you that that's never going to happen, then I tell most of my colleagues that job's not for you if that's what you want to do. So they're going to tell you they want you to fix the 5% rule, but they're not going to equip you to do it. And that's a cultural issue. So unless you're prepared to take over ownership, or unless you've got a real tight relationship with a heavy influencer, such as a major investor in the organization who sees it your point of view, you're never going to be successful. So it's a really depressing statement. I know I just made. It's like, oh, I'm working with this company. I see the problem and I can't do it. And Darryl, you just told me it's never going to happen. And what I'm saying is it's likely not to happen, but you can affect change with a good business case and by lobbying all the stakeholders and making them feel owned. So you can affect change, but it often is a harder, longer process to do that.
What got us here is what we discussed.
Yeah.
What I want you to tell me is, how do we get out of this?
Okay. Actually, so the answer is actually a lot easier than you think. Now, I say that I'm going through it myself, right? So I'm going to be speaking very personally right now. Because like everybody else here, I try to make fit and work what I inherited when I took on the job. And the best thing I ever did for me, for those who find yourself in this situation, is it's nonstop communication. So I talked about lobbying and getting advocacy. Part of that is setting the stage. There's going to come a time when you're going to have to lobby for more money or more people or more technology or more process. That's going to come no matter what. If you want to change the status quo, you're going to have to make some changes, and that may cost money. The best way to do that now is to start lobbying in advance by just simply doing this. Talking nonstop with all the stakeholders that will eventually be engaged for the changes you want to do. So in my case, that's the CEO and the CFO. And what I do regularly is I just keep them apprised of my challenges. And sometimes I call them up and I just use them to vent. And I walk through and I say, this is what I'm seeing. Am I stupid? You tell me. And the reason I'm communicating up and including them in the process is so their eyes get open to the challenges I'm facing, and then they console me and they support me, and then they give me feedback, and then I can act on some of their direction. It may or may not work, but at least they feel like they're part of the process now. So when the time comes to say, where I say we need to make dramatic change, they go, "You're right," because they've kind of been on this journey with me. So many of you fail at communicating up. Manage up. That's your first step. You're going to take those first 3-6 months and get the lay of the land. That's why you're managing up constantly, getting the lay of the land, and you're going to observe where the process is broken. You're going to investigate everybody's complaints. Sales is going to complain that the marketing leads suck. All right, do the marketing leads suck? Why do they suck? Do you have an agreed upon definition of a marketing qualified lead? Marketing is going to complain that sales isn't following up on the leads. So when they do, they're cold, or they only call them once. Okay, investigate. Is that what's going on here? So you're identifying, like a doctor would, all of the symptoms and because it's often not just one symptom that is causing a disease. It's a collection of symptoms that are often magnifying each other. So you got to identify all the symptoms. So do that. That's what you're doing. You're going to investigate. And you're going to be very intentional about it. And you're going to refrain from judgment. You're going to ask the obvious questions. Okay, well, why do they suck? Do we not have a tool that does that already? We don't. Okay, how does this work? Why are they not calling multiple times? We have a CRM. Are they not using, the CRM to do this? Oh, they're not. They're living in Excel spreadsheets and they suck because they're not organized. Okay, so you understand the issue. The second thing you're going to do is you're then going to get the leaders. You're going to get what I call my revenue team in place. So all the people that report to me, but for most people, this is going to be the head of sales and the head of marketing. And you could have a few other people in there, maybe the head of your operations people. And you're going to put them in a room and you're going to say, okay, guys, we're going to agree on shared values, shared goals, and you're all going to be measured on it. So when I say measured on, that means you're changing their compensation plans so they're all measured on the same thing. All right, and you're creating sales and marketing alignment through a service level agreement. This is a document that says this is what everybody commits to. So, for example, sales, you're going to commit that you're going to follow up on a lead within 1 hour of getting that lead, and you're going to make maybe 7 attempts in 7 days using email, phone, social selling, yada, 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 yada. And if you don't do that, this is the consequence. And if you do that, I'm going to give you a reward financially. You're going to make more money if you do this. That's an example. So your compensation plan drives behavior, and everybody knows what the compensation plan is. Next thing is you're going to create shared KPIs. So they're going to be sales KPIs and marketing KPIs, but there's also going to be shared KPIs, such as conversion rate. And the reason you're going to do shared KPIs is because, again, you're going to use that in the compensation plan. Next thing is you document that process and you put it in front of freaking everybody, from the lowest SDR to the CEO of the company, so everybody understands expectations. Third, you review all these numbers every single week. So you do it publicly, so that everybody knows they need to go to that meeting and they have to physically be accountable for why their part of the revenue magical recipe sucked. All right. So it's amazing what peer pressure will do to drive behavior. So there's that. Lastly, I'm a big believer in you only get leaps of progress when you take a leap of faith. So you can refine what you're doing now, but if you're still going to do the same old tactics and the same old message and the same old, selling technique and marketing technique that you've always used, you're only going to get incremental gains, nominal incremental gains. It's like refinement. If you really want to make major gains, you've got to change it up and take risks. So what that means is you need to create a culture of controlled experimentation within your organization that says, okay, we're going to do this crazy marketing campaign we've never done before. It's a completely different take from everything we've done. It's a different voice. It's a different audience. Oh my gosh, I don't know if it's going to work. And you say, fine. All right, so let's control it. We'll do an A/B test. Half will be a control, like we've always done. Half will be this new one. And it's okay if this experiment fails. We'll do it in a small attempt first. And then if it works, we'll go bigger. Because the point is, that's the only way you'll ever make dramatic changes, is by actually taking big risk. And you don't discipline your employees for saying, I want to take this risk. You help them take the risk in a controlled fashion. And if it fails, you don't say this is all your fault, you suck, because you were part of the process. You say, okay, what did we learn from this? Let's not make that mistake again. We're smarter now than we were before. We've learned that this doesn't work. But what's amazing is that a lot of things will work.
Yes.
I go back to a conversation I had with one of my jobs back 15 years ago, and I said, your audience, they were like sheriffs, a lot of police people. I said, do they even get their information online? And they were like, nope, everything's done live and in person, and they have the little magazines. And I said, okay. And that was across the whole board. That was everybody. That's how sheriffs got their information. And I said, I think you're wrong. I think some of them go online. And so we did a controlled experiment online to see if we did surveys, we did sponsorship, we did events all online. Huge response, massive response. And everybody was shocked, because that's not the way it had always been. Their buyer had changed and we were still stuck on the old buyer. We only found that out because we took a risk.
Of course.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
So those are some of the highlights of what you do, but there you go.
When you look at your current outbound mode, are you expecting that your team has to be more patient with that process than inbound? Because as you rightly said, inbound, already the intent is there. I mean, this guy has found you. He may churn, but he will take the decision faster. He's going to give the credit card faster. But in the other case, what's your experience?
So the experience is like what you said. It's going to take a substantial multiple faster. So let's say my average inbound is in our case is probably 2 to 4 weeks to the max. All right. Outbound is going to be 3 to 4 months, if not longer. As many as a year, because it's a bigger process, bigger buying committee. They do this, maybe quarterly or annual on these major decisions. So that's the issue, right? So yeah, it's going to take way, way longer if you do it right, because often they don't know they have a problem. So you need to go and find all the various roles and personas you're targeting in your ideal customer profile in your outbound efforts, and actually connect with them, which takes time. Eventually you get them live on a phone or a Zoom, and then start doing proper discovery, which can take multiple calls as well. So, and then what that does is that kickstarts a project that didn't exist in their organization to say, I've been having these conversations and they're right. And we do have these issues and maybe we need to look at this. So now they've got to do their own advocacy in championing in business cases internally, which you can help with. But yeah, this takes way, way longer. But the difference is on outbound, you control the sales cycle far more than on inbound. On inbound, they're coming to you when they're 3/4 or more through the buyer's journey, through the funnel. Outbound, you're hitting them early at the top of the funnel. You're shaping the message, you're shaping the requirements, you're putting in landmines for the competition, and you're developing relationships that will span months and months and months, will help you map the account, which will grow seats, which will grow deal size. But yeah, it takes way longer. And because of that, you need to go back again and manage expectations at the executive and board level that says, I know this is what you're used to, but these are the consequences you're going to see. Like the sales cycle is going to go from 1 month to 6 months. It's just going to happen. So you're not going to see the investment of this for like at least a year. At least a year. You'll get dribs and drabs at the start, and then it'll build momentum. And a year from now, you'll say, damn. But if you come to me in 3 months' time or 4 months' time or 6 months' time and say, where are we at, Praill? You suck. Then you're premature. And that's why I'm telling you now. So that goes back to that whole lobbying thing and managing expectations, getting buy-in. But yeah, it's huge. The difference is huge. And the problem with that is your reps are really impatient because they've been conditioned to take commission checks now.
Interesting. I mean, I would end the talk today here, but this is another thing I want to talk about, whether this entire compensation of sales folks via commission checks is outdated completely. So that's for another day, another chat. But I would love to do that. I would love to do that. Okay.
I'm there. I'm in. Hey, thank you so much. This was a fun conversation. Thank you.
Thank you too.